What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex. In this video, I want to talk about Death Stranding 2 and basically how big this game could potentially be. What I want to do here, I want to look back at the first game and talk about just the jump that we could be seeing here from the player base, from even how it's received. And to be honest with you, I thought of this video idea, and then I later on in the day saw Hideo Kojima talking. This was maybe a few days ago from when you guys were watching the video. He talks about the kind of mock review scores, right? So pretty much every company under the sun does these things, right? They bring in an outside firm and they have them look through their game and kind of give a rough estimate of what the score is. Now, commonplace is that, a lot of these games that get like 60s and 50s, they go on record saying, well, the mock scores weren't that low. So, it's used as a crutch, I feel like, a lot of times. But, look, they pay money for people to do this, and it's supposed to be kind of close, right? If it gives you a 75, you can expect somewhere around there is what, critics at the end of the day are going to give your game. So just to kind of start there, right? We'll talk about kind of the impact and the sales and all that stuff in a second. But, that story was that, when he was testing Death Stranding 1, most people, he says it was kind of 50-50, but his story was 4 out of 10 people liked it, and so 6 out of 10 didn't like it. So that's actually more. It's actually a 60-40 split of people that didn't like the game. But, almost two separate stories, right? Because he had like these testing groups, and then he had the actual mock reviewers, and they didn't say it was like a bad game, but, the score wasn't, enormously high. And, Hideo Kojima, just one of the greatest of all time, right? Even what he says in that kind of interview is like, he wants to make games that are split. He wants to do something that's not really safe and kind of put it out there in the world and see what people think and kind of stand by, what he puts out. So I highly respect the guy's like motivation, like why he actually does this stuff, right? It's really, really cool, honestly. Like I really can appreciate that. So to start there, he talks about Death Stranding 2, that Death Stranding 2 is actually receiving higher mock review scores than Death Stranding 1 did, and he talked about how, the Sony, PlayStation, they're happy with it, but, he likes to be divisive, he likes to be kind of split, so, he's not absolutely thrilled, but he's pretty happy about it. So even just starting there, I mean, and you can already tell, I feel, from the previews, like that Metal Gear Solid 2 moment, we talked about that even in a video of mine a little while ago. It seems like this is the jump. It seems like, if you could tolerate and get through Death Stranding, and not to say it's a bad game, but if you made it through, and even if you semi-enjoyed it, you might freaking adore Death Stranding 2, just from this, like, almost natural jump that has happened, right? So I think the building blocks, or like the foundation, is already there, where it's like, okay, we're only just a couple weeks away, I think, from people, again, like a different level of like, okay, this game is like miles and miles better than Death Stranding 1, based off of your opinion of Death Stranding 1, okay? Now, so there's that part. I mean, even just, again, critically, maybe like the review scores of it, you might expect it to be higher, and you think, like, I think it's like an 82, like, it's not enormously high, there's plenty of games that have beaten it on Metacritic. I mean, that's not the be-all, end-all, but, it's, I guess considering PlayStation reviews, and we know, actually, I'm pretty sure we know quite well, PlayStation does like their games to be very high. Now, they don't, own him, but, obviously they're working in partnership and all that. They want these games to be rated as highly as possible. So, I'm sure they would look, if this could get like in the mid to high 8s versus the low 8s, they would see that as a win. How about just like who plays it? Now, my recollection, I don't think is accurate. Now, I'll tell you guys how I kind of saw it in the moment, and you can let me know, what you think, and then we'll kind of go over what actually did happen. So, from my experience, or what I remember happening, was the game initially started very, very strong, and then it really completely like died off afterwards. I remember there being this idea that maybe like the Hideo Kojima like fan base, like really, they were there. They appeared day one, and they helped it for the first week, first month, whatever, and then it kind of, pattered out. Now, when you actually look at it, I don't think that was actually true. I mean, the game started really, really well, but I feel like it was a slow burn. I think in terms of my analysis right now, on the sales, I feel like it was a game that, never did spectacular, but did really well just over time, right? Almost, like a smaller example, maybe be like an Alan Wake 2, right? Like that game was never making it on top 5, top 10, but that game just keeps kind of selling very under the radar, right? It might sell a couple tens of thousands a month, hundreds of thousands a month, but, those things add up, right? If you do that a couple months in a row and you don't stop, it can kind of build up over time, right? And I feel like Death Stranding. So obviously, comes out in 2019. And at the time, I think it was actually the second biggest because Days Gone came out that year. Days Gone actually beat it. I think from like any statistical chart you're going to find, Days Gone, I do think actually outsold, Death Stranding. But again, Death Stranding kept going and kept going. And there was an estimate done back in April of 2020. Okay. So you're talking about half a year after the game came out that there was around 3 million players. And this is when it's only on PS4. Okay. Only on PlayStation, 3 million. So this is not a Last of Us. It's not an Uncharted. It's not a God of War, even Horizon, Spider-Man. It's not a game that's selling 2 million in a week, and then maybe it kind of dies after that or has like a slow burn there. Almost the reverse, right? This is a game that maybe started, it started hot, but it didn't start unbelievably hot, but it just stayed consistent, right? Because within 6 months, just consistently doing okay gets it to 3 million people, okay? Then when it came out on Steam, like that reached actually quite a few people, and back in July of 2021, okay, so now you're talking almost 2 years, the game had sold 5 million, and this is when it was only on PS4 and PC. Now, it's been 4 years, okay? It's been 4 years since then. We do not have any updated sales beyond the 5 sales. What we did get, of course, very recently, I think like just a week or two ago, is they did announce that Death Stranding had been played or it had reached 20 million people. Okay, now the reason I spent so much time talking about this, right, is talk about Death Stranding 2, right? Like, what's the impact there? To me, I actually feel like this is maybe like the exact thing you would want because this is a game, again, that kept it up. And did 5 million in 2 years is pretty darn good for a game of this size. And then to, I guess, triple those numbers potentially separately. Now, here's the thing, like it's on PS Plus, okay? And the director's cut's on PS Plus. So I'm not going to kid myself and say, oh, well, maybe it's like a 50-50 thing. I do think the majority have probably played it on PS Plus. Now, if you want to say that's 10 million and 1 versus, 9,999, I mean, you could do that. It's probably, considering like the rate that it just did pretty solid over a long period of time, it might have done, 7-8 million sales and then 12-13 million doing it in a free format, right? PS Plus. But okay, now going into Death Stranding 2, again, I feel like that's fine. Like, I think that's kind of almost what you want, is you want this game that did well sales-wise, but did it long-term, and which actually kind of reminds me of Kingdom Come, by the way, a game that almost people didn't even realize was just selling like 10+ million units over an incredibly long period of time, right? So this game does really solid, in terms of sales long period, and it also was played by a lot of people just experiencing it, just playing it for free. Now, when you go into the second game, like, you want to ride that, and so here's I guess how it all ends, right? This is how the story ends, or at least my prediction of this. It has kind of both sides to it, like both ends. I feel like that's kind of the perfect recipe. This is a game that, from all of the impressions and previews, now, yeah, I mean, look, they're people, they have their own opinions. Your opinion could differ, but like, it seems like this is that jump, like from a one game, like the first game, to the sequel, how it can sometimes have that enormous jump. We've seen this before, even with PlayStation franchises, think about Uncharted, right? Amongst many others. So you have that. You have kind of the quality, and this might be a game that appeals to more people versus one based off a lot of the gameplay things too, right? Like just the evolution of a lot of the stuff that Hideo kind of unlocks with this game, compared to the first game. I think it's targeting more people, and then also just naturally over time, the first game reached so many people. And here's the thing, I guarantee you not everybody likes it. Like, these games are specific, and not everybody likes Hideo Kojima games. But when you get 20 million people to just try it, you're not going to get all of them. Like 1,000%, you're not going to get all of them, but you'll get some, right? And then couple that with everything else. Couple that with the quality, seemingly jumping, and just like it's a better overall game. That, I think, is a match, and I feel like that's really going to help. So, I don't, like, Death Stranding 2 has never really been on my list or in my mind of like, oh yeah, this is gonna be like one of the bigger things of the year. It's definitely like him releasing a game is a big deal. Don't get me wrong. Okay, I'm not like, it's an event, and I'm not saying it's not. But I never looked at this game and said, because like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, like that's something that is gonna make a mark. Oblivion doing so well. Like, when you think of sales, when you think about games that are gonna do so good, honestly, I think about Ghost of Yotei when I think about PlayStation this year, and saying, okay, well, that's a game that could potentially do really well. I've never really put Death Stranding in that same bracket. Truly, like I've never really done that. With Kingdom Come, Split Fiction's gonna sell like freaking hotcakes. It already is. I've never put this game with those, but I honestly feel like it might be time to. Now, again, I don't know. Is this a Last of Us? Is this a Spider-Man, God of War? Can it do 2-3 million units in 2-3 days? Like, but at the same time, that's not like a one size fits all. Like, you don't have to do that. Again, those games sell 2, 3, 4, 5 million in the first couple of weeks and then severely drop. Now, yeah, they carry on. Like, they'll get to 8 or 9 or 10. So they'll double it, but they do half of it in the first week or two, and then they do the other half over 2-3 years. Versus, again, there's no like perfect, like, you know, would you prefer that, which is basically money front loaded, or would you prefer like Alan Wake or like Death Stranding, a game that does solid, you're happy with it, but it just never stops. It keeps going. And I think that's kind of a Hideo Kojima thing as well. You know what I mean? Where it's like you'll get his fans, you'll get the immediate buy-in, and then it's going to take a little while to get to, you know what I mean? Everybody else is going to kind of hop on periodically. And I think it's just going to happen faster and maybe more frequently with this game versus the first game. So I personally think not only is this game going to do, bigger than, or going to be bigger, say, overall than the first game, but, when I think about, okay, what's some of the biggest games that can potentially come out this year, I think it's time I, myself, start to put this game on the list and start to consider it. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and hope to see you all on the next one.